What are your best tips there with, email and newsletter content and things like
Ah,
that?
that's a great question. Number one,
Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Becoming More Me. I'm really excited to introduce you today to Ruthie Sterrett. Ruthie is a marketing strategist and founder of the Consistency Corner, which is a marketing and content agency for small business owners. And she helps businesses create marketing strategies and content that drive revenue through content planning, simple marketing, best practices, positive reinforcement, and accountability. That's always a big one for me. Often entrepreneurs are wearing so many hats that marketing and content creation is inconsistent. I can attest to that, while they juggle all the things. Ruthie created the Consistency Corner to help you create simple content frameworks which build trust and lead to regular sales. So I'm really excited that Ruthie's here because we met over a year ago. It was, second half of 2022. And she had seen me on an interview where I was talking about EFT with our mutual friend Lori on her podcast Secrets of Supermom. And we hopped on a call, which led to us working together for about 6 months through my program. And, I feel like through that time, I really got to know you, Ruthie. And, I love to be able to share what you do today because, through that, I've come to know you as a friend and learned so much about your life, your business, your dreams, and just really excited to share what you're doing with everybody else today. So, welcome.
yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so grateful for Lori connecting us. She's such a good friend and fun person. And it was so cool to hear your story on her show and get to know you. And I'm excited for this conversation today. You said you can totally attest to business owners wearing all the hats and
Yeah.
sometimes being inconsistent with content creation. And I think a lot of business owners didn't know that they were signing up to be content creators when they decided to start a business. It's like this hidden secret that we don't talk about. And then you're in it and then you're like, "Oh, I have to keep showing up. I have to keep putting myself out there. I have to keep the messaging going." And we look into the world of social media, which unfortunately is telling you 30 reels in 30 days, post 17 times a day, show up in stories all day long. And we're like, oh my God, I just want to serve my clients. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. And so, my mission is to help companies find sustainable ways to leverage social media without the burnout and without
Yes.
sacrificing your visibility.
I'm looking forward to this conversation because our work really hinges on what we do. You help people to create the content and get it out there. And I oftentimes have clients who are so scared to be on social media, so afraid of public speaking or other things that put them out there and the exposure and the vulnerability and all of the other things that come with that. So there's components of what I do that support that. And then there's the components that you do that support that. And it's like the functional stuff meets the inner work, and then we have a great, kind of product at the end, which is people really kind of moving the needle on these things that can sometimes seem really difficult but don't have to be.
Yeah.
So
And well, let me just say really quick that inner work, like my method, the Consistency Corner marketing method, is based in a foundation of growth mindset. And at the end of the day, I'm not a mindset coach or a mindset teacher, but if you're not working on your mindset, anything that I help you with isn't going to work because we've got to be in the right mindset and have that belief that what we're putting in is going to work. And I understand there's fear there. I understand the comparison trap is there. But when we build out frameworks that we can be consistent with, we start to build that confidence and we're working on our mindset on the other side, we're actually going to be able to start to see the results versus like throwing spaghetti at the wall.
absolutely. I've thrown some spaghetti in my day. So before we get into all the business nitty-gritty stuff, I'd love for you to just share a little bit about, who you are, what your day-to-day life is like, who the important people are in your life, and, what your hobbies are, how you like to spend your time outside of helping people with marketing strategies.
Yeah, for sure. So I am a mom to an 8-year-old little boy. I'm a mom of one, um, intentional mom of one. I always knew I wanted one child, and my husband is in the same boat, luckily. But we live in Florida. I'm originally from the Midwest, and I would actually say I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I didn't grow up thinking I was going to start a business. My dad was an entrepreneur and had some failed businesses. And then that made me just be like, no, no, thank you. Not interested in the risk. But after I had my son and I realized that I needed flexibility in my life to be able to care for him, be there for him, but like I still wanted to work. Because I like working. I'm an
Yeah.
Enneagram 3. A box checker, accomplish, like achiever. That's me. And so I started looking for other jobs in marketing and sales and events, all the different retail, all the different areas that I'd worked in my life that was going to give me that flexibility. And I couldn't find it. And I realized I couldn't find it because I was meant to create it. And I did step out on my own after I had been doing marketing strategy and some coaching kind of just on the side. Some stuff happened with my son and we changed schools and I had to be more present for him. And so I resigned and realized when I made that decision to resign that I was supposed to create this opportunity for myself and that the vision is actually to create it for other moms
Yeah.
because I always knew that I wanted to do something to help working moms. Like I became a mom and knew that like that was part of my calling was to help other working moms. I didn't know what that looked like or what that meant, but I realized in starting the Consistency Corner that I want to be able to give other women who want to work the opportunity to do so in a flexible environment and have that like schedule that they can go on the field trip, that they can pick up the kiddo when they're sick, that they can get a workout in the middle of the day if that's what makes them feel better. And so that's what we're building with the Consistency Corner is an agency to be able to support women and hire women in that scenario and stage of life.
Yeah.
And at the same time, helping business owners and companies who are like, I don't want to wear the marketing hat. The marketing hat doesn't fit. It doesn't look good on me. I would like to just serve my clients or do something else. So we will either do it for you or help you find sustainable strategies and ways that you can do it yourself with less of the time suck.
That's awesome. Yes, I so value the flexibility of entrepreneurship, and I think I would be very unhappy if I had to go back to a set schedule or answering to someone else because I really like to make the rules and play the game my way. So,
Yeah.
why marketing? What got you into marketing?
That's a really good question. And I was in retail management for years, and my degree is in selling and sales management. 18-year-old me thought I was going to be a pharmaceutical sales rep, literally because I was good at talking to people and I was good at science. Like I put those two things
I'm
together. That's
glad you didn't go that route.
right. Well, I decided 3 semesters in after quote unquote failing my organic chemistry final, which was really not a failure. I got a C, but I thought I failed. And I was walking home crying and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a pre-pharmacy major. So changed to selling and sales management, stayed in the world of retail and always knew, and I loved retail. I loved to shop. I love clothes. I loved retail. I love merchandising. But always knew that I didn't want to work in traditional retail once I had kids because nights, weekends, holidays, I knew that that wasn't the schedule for me. And people would always tell me, you should go into marketing. You should go into marketing. And I was like, I didn't go to school for that. I don't know anything about marketing. And as many of us do in the early days of our entrepreneurial journey, I did some network marketing, dabbled as a Beachbody coach, and dove headfirst into the world of learning about marketing and taught myself.
I remember that
And
was a commonality when we first started talking that we both had that network marketing background that I think so many entrepreneurial spirits have. There
yeah,
can be all sorts of things said about it one way or another, but so many of the people that I know that have gone on to do great things, somewhere in their history is a period of time that they spent learning and growing through network marketing.
yeah. And it was like I got all this free training and understanding around branding and messaging and all of those things like lit me up. I was so passionate about it.
Yes.
And so I actually had an opportunity to step into a corporate retail role after my son was born in merchandising. And I worked really closely with the marketing manager at the time and realized like, I do know some stuff. I know about this. And she actually resigned, and the CEO offered me the role of the marketing director. And I said, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm going to be totally honest. I don't know what I'm doing, but I will figure it out because I will figure it out is like a core value of mine, being a solution finder. And so I just dove headfirst into the world of branding, messaging, copywriting, optimizing the funnel, learning digital marketing strategies. And after I taught myself through education and courses and podcasts and all those things and trial and error and real life experience, I helped that brand that I was working for grow from a $20 million brand to a $65 million brand by the time I left. And like humble brag, and I don't do this very often because I'm not good at patting myself on the back, but
Oh, do it. Brag.
I just heard through the grapevine that they're going to hit $100 million this year. And while
Woohoo!
I'm not sitting in that seat anymore, I hired the person who is, and I set up some foundations for them in their messaging and their branding to continue to grow and get to that level. And that's something that I'm like, I did that. And I
Yeah,
taught
claim
them.
it.
Yeah. And I realized that I could help other people, that if I can teach myself and figure it out and do these things and implement these things, I can help other people too who didn't go to school for marketing. Because
Yeah.
so many business owners are like, I went to school for XYZ or this or that. I remember talking to a friend who is a chiropractor who's like, they don't teach you in chiropractor school how to market your business. They teach you how to be a chiropractor. But unfortunately, with business, the like, if you build it, they will come myth is just that. It's a myth. If you
Right.
build it and you market it successfully, then they will come.
Yeah. And I think entrepreneurs really need like custom solutions. I've noticed that in a lot of the different certifications and things that I've taken over the last few years, many of them are working marketing into their programs. And yet it all feels like I've either been at it longer and it's not up to speed with what I need, or it's only tailored to that particular part of what I do. And, for me, it's like I blend so many different things together. I'm very much my own brand and my own thing that nobody else is doing the way that I'm doing it. So it's like I can take nuggets, but I find that a lot of that kind of pre-done marketing training, I have to find ways to really manipulate it or make it more my own. So
Yeah.
I think it's
You
important
know,
to have people like you
I
that
love I
custom.
love that you say that because you do such a great job of championing self-discovery and becoming more of yourself because all of those tactics and strategies, they're not bad, but you have to make them your own. And I was
Right.
just sharing this analogy on Instagram stories the other day that for me, like marketing strategy and marketing frameworks, they're like recipes. And there are 87,000 chocolate chip cookie recipes on Pinterest. And you have to find the one that you like best, the one that's best for you and your tastes. And marketing strategy is the same way. The difference is you can make chocolate chip cookies one time and decide, yes, this is for me or no, it's not. But unfortunately, with marketing, like time is an element of the recipe. And sometimes we have to give a framework or a strategy or a plan some time to work
Yeah.
versus just like, I did it once. Oh, that didn't work. Like there is an element of time. And
Yes.
so finding someone who can help you individualize a strategy or a framework for you and your unique business and bandwidth and goals is so important to help you be consistent so that you can put in the
Yes.
time.
Which kind of brings me back to when I was talking with you for your show, and we were talking about how hard it is to slow down and to get grounded and to do these things. So sometimes you kind of need somebody that's there, kind of letting you know, hey, this is normal. This is all part of the process. This is still safe and all of
Mhm.
that. And I know, we're going to do tapping on that to include with your show episode about, how it's so hard for us to slow down. And yet that's where all the good stuff happens when we just allow things to happen. Because so often we get into that masculine energy of do, 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 like checking the lists and all those things that you and I both have in common. But that's not the energy that we were like born to be great in, you
Yeah.
know? So I definitely appreciate that. I would love to talk about social media burnout. And, for me, it's like more and more, I just keep hearing from, friends of mine who are very engaged on their social media that are just so burnt out. And you know what? They're resentful about the amount of engagement, the amount of time it takes to maintain their presence and to keep their businesses profitable. So, how can we manage this burnout and how can we leverage social media and marketing without feeling like our whole life has to be devoted to it and work around it?
Yeah. Well, I think there's two camps of business owners. And the first one is who you described as and friends that are like burnt out, like they're constantly having to show up in the DMs, they're spending hours scrolling, they're just always on the platform and they're pumping out the content because they're feeding the algorithm because that's what they've been told they have to do. But there's another camp of business owners that I actually think there's even more of these. And these are the ones who are silently scrolling, not creating, and feeling really guilty about it and getting in their heads about like, my content doesn't speak to my business. If somebody lands on my Instagram page, they have no idea what I do. Maybe I put out a post a couple weeks ago, but it got crickets. So what's the point? What am I even
Right.
doing? And that narrative in our head weighs on our creative energy in other parts of the business.
Yeah.
So I came up with a strategy that helps you step away from social media without sacrificing your visibility. And there's a couple different components to this strategy that I want to walk through. And it's called the 9 grid. And I didn't actually invent it, but I did try it and then realized how to make it work within a marketing plan, because social media in and of itself is not a marketing strategy. It's a piece of the puzzle and
Right.
it's a container. And I always use this analogy that a coffee cup isn't coffee. It's a container for your coffee. And social media is a container for your message. And
True.
so, how do we make sure that we have the right message on your social media so that your visibility is there, you have a professional presence, but you're not having to constantly pump out content? And the way that we do that is make sure that we have other marketing containers that we're leveraging, such as long form content, a blog, a podcast, video on YouTube, if you're a video person, networking events, meeting people out in the community, whatever, being on podcasts. We want to start there and make sure we've got those things. And then on social media, the 9 grid. So the 9 grid, if you're not sure what it is, you're like, Ruthie, I don't even know what you're talking about. It is turning your Instagram into basically like a mini website. So it's 9 strategic posts that fit together that almost look like a puzzle, or they kind of overlap or lay together so that those 9 posts someone sees when they land on your profile, it's very intentional and it's very strategic and obvious that these tell a story.
You can see
And
some beautiful examples of this on Ruthie's Instagram page. I was just looking through it this morning and it's really gorgeous, very aesthetically appealing and very intentional. And so you're going to kind of imagine, if you're not on Instagram, like basically 3 by 3. You have this kind of 3 by 3 of the posts, the way that they look when you go to someone's bio page on Instagram, and not just one singular post where you're looking at like their whole page.
yeah, yeah. And I've heard business owners say to me, like, well, I don't find clients on Instagram. And that's great. But your clients are on Instagram. Your potential clients are looking you up on the internet because that's what we do. And I can tell you many business owners that whether I've decided to make a purchasing decision or not, you might give them a Google and then you go to their social media, because that's like how
Right.
we get to know people. And content is a vehicle for connection. And
Hmm.
if it feels like you don't have the time to pump out the content, we want to make sure that the content we have up there is super intentional. So in that 9 grid, we want to make sure we're telling you in those 9 posts, who do you serve? What's the problem you solve? What are some value adds or quick wins you can get for someone so that they like understand your authority and expertise? What are your values so that you can truly attract the right people? And layering all that into those 9 posts, then once you've posted it, you don't have to post anymore. And people are always like, wait, what do you mean I don't have to post
Wait, what?
anymore?
Huh?
Don't have to post anymore. Now, I do recommend you revisit a 9 grid if you put one up every 3 months or so, just because things can shift in your business. You have new offers come out, your capacity might change, or your availability, or you might be testing out some new messaging.
Right.
If nothing has changed, you don't even have to take it down. Like, keep it up and just, move on with your life.
And you
And then
could still continue to post on your reels and just not have them post to your feed, and then that wouldn't disrupt the beautiful aesthetic that you have there.
and that's one of my favorite tips for podcasters is leverage clips from your podcast as reels. Pro tip, this is like an insider tip. We say you don't let them hit the feed. They're in Instagram. There's a little button that says like, don't hit feed. You actually want to keep that on. And then when it hits your grid, you remove it from the grid, because there's the grid and there's the feed. And those are 2 different things. So if you have the little button that says like, do not show in feed,
Okay.
it doesn't hit your grid, but it also then is not shown to your followers. It's not in the
Mm.
like regular feed. So what I learned from trial and error and doing this with myself and with clients is that you post the reel, you let it hit your grid. Yes, your 9 grid is messed up for a little bit, but then go to the reel and you hit the three little dots where you could edit to like change a caption or whatever. And there's a thing that says remove from grid. And then we remove it from your grid, but now it's in the feed and only on your Reels tab. So that's like an insider
So
tip if you
how
try.
long do you leave it up there for?
I mean, if I'm posting the reel live, I take it off immediately. If I am scheduling the reel, like my podcast clips, we schedule those reels. The next time I go to Instagram, I just take it down. So it might be on my
Okay.
grid for a little while, but it's not a huge deal. But I learned that because when we were not letting it hit the feed, the reach was dismal. The reach of those reels would be like 4 or like 15, and it was like what's happening here. And then when I started doing it the other way, my reach went back to normal of like a couple hundred to 1,000 per view based upon the algorithm and my following.
Yeah, that's
But
great.
you can use that then, and even like I love to do this with podcasters who post reels with clips of their show. One of your squares in the grid can be talking about your podcast. And then your call to action in that caption can be head over to the Reels tab for some
Right.
previews of our recent shows. And so then we're giving the audience different ways to consume content and different ways to connect with us and build that connection. And if you're like, okay, I'm not a reels person, like I don't want to do reels, I don't want to do dancing or whatever, okay, don't, like then don't do the things that work for you. And then think about, because reels are a way that people can discover you on the algorithm because they are shown to
Yes.
people who don't follow you. But then if that's not a tool or a container that you're using for top of funnel or to attract, what are you using? Are you
Mhm.
using podcast guesting? Are you using SEO and blog content? Are you using other types of collaboration? We just want to make sure that you have a strategy in place for
Right.
top of funnel and for attract. And then I really think about the 9 grid and your social media posts being that nurture middle of funnel. And once you set it, you don't have to think about it anymore and you can think about other things.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know a lot of people don't like to get in front of the camera and they feel like Reels makes them do that, but you can turn almost anything into a Reel. A regular
Yes.
post can be, formatted for a Reel, set to a little music or whatever else, and you don't have to appear on there or even speak if you don't want to, and you can still get your point across. So
Yeah.
I often try to make sure people understand that when they're a little bit worried about getting on social media or they're just starting out, that so many different things can be turned into whatever format it is that you're comfortable creating.
Yeah. And to your point, that's one of the things that I help clients with when we do, I offer done for you 9 grids as a service. And we're like, I will do the whole thing for you. We'll write the captions. We're going to design the grid. I'm going to have a one-on-one with you where I really get into your business and learn everything that we need to know. But then along with that 9 grid that we create, I'm going to create a 90-day content plan with prompts for you, for reels, for stories, for emails, for long form content, depending upon what your bandwidth is, depending upon what consistency and intensity you can maintain so that we have a holistic piece. And I actually, this is one thing, as I started doing these 9 grid offers and this became something that I've been speaking on, like people know me for social media. And I'm like, I'm not a social media manager. I'm not, like, I don't want to be known for that because social media in and of itself is not the whole strategy. And it like makes my blood boil when I see other social media managers posting like, you just need this one hack, this one thing. Just do this and your business is going to explode. Like, no, it's a piece
No.
of the puzzle. And so the 9 grid can help you like get a handle on that piece so that we can work on other pieces.
Yeah. And so many people are always striving to have that like viral post, thinking that it's going to make everything different. And I gotta say, guys, like anybody I know that's ever had posts go viral, and I know a lot of people who have always said it doesn't attract the right followers. It's not the people that are actually interested in your business. Usually it's like we don't get to choose the post that goes viral. It's usually the thing that goes viral is not something that we're really known for in our business or our work. And so we might get like this major influx of followers or something like that, but it's rare in those circumstances that they're aligned with the things that move the needle on your business being profitable.
Yeah.
Fun, but It just kind of depends on what you value there, I suppose. But yeah, social media is just a piece of it. And I know, at least with my team, we've been working a lot more on, putting a focus on email and newsletters and things like that. What are your best tips there with, email and newsletter content and things like
Ah,
that?
that's a great question. Number one, choose an intensity that you can maintain consistently. And if that's once a month, okay, then it's once a month. I have so many clients that I work with that are not doing email, or they're doing email really sporadically. And they're like, I'm going to do email once a week. And I'm like, okay. And I write them content prompts, and we plan a thing, and we even plan for ways to like repurpose other things into emails. And then the next month we meet and I'm like, how's it going? I've done nothing. And I'm like, okay, once a week was too intense. So let's start where you are. Let's go from there, and let's do once a month and get consistent with that once a month. And when I teach marketing strategy, and we did this in my corporate past as well, is all these containers that I'm talking about, or these intensities. Every quarter, we want to layer in no more than one new thing, or increase intensity on no more than one thing, because you're just asking too much of yourself. You want to get consistent with those habits before we layer in. And
Yeah.
as business owners, we look out into the world of talking about marketing, and it's like reels and TikToks and LinkedIn's and emails and blogs and podcasts and stories, and you should be in all these places. And if you're just starting out, you're like, whoa, I can't do all that. And I know a lot of business owners who actually, they're really successful from word of mouth and referrals. And so they're so busy serving their clients, they don't have time to do all of those things. But they like
Yeah.
know instinctively that I've got to keep filling my funnel. I've got to do some marketing. So let's pick one thing. Let's pick a way that we can do it consistently. And email marketing for me, to understand also that it is a nurture and a convert tool. It's not top of funnel, because nobody's going to discover you on your email list. You have to get their email, right?
Right.
So knowing, number one, what is an intensity that I can maintain consistently? And then if you're already being consistent with email, let's say you're already sending out a newsletter, maybe once a month, maybe twice a month, whatever it is, the next piece of email is automated emails and funnels and nurture sequences. And what that means is, like, if you have a free resource or a form that someone can fill out, after they fill that out, what happens?
Yes.
How are you using email to continue to communicate with them, add value, point them back to blogs? And this is something that you didn't ask about long form content, but I want to get into it
No,
because
it's
I know
great. I appreciate it. This is stuff where I
nerd,
like to spend my
nerd
time
out
and
on
focus.
this. The more we create long form content, the more that content gets to work for us. I write email nurture sequences and point people back to podcasts that I published a year ago, because I'm like, you downloaded this thing, you want this information. I have 3 podcasts that I talk about that on. And so now I can point you back to that, or I helped a realtor. We did some blog content around seasonal things to do to get ready for your home. Well, we can put that into an email nurture sequence and point back to it for potential clients who are thinking about listing. And that long form content in the beginning, I know sometimes people feel like nobody's reading this blog, nobody's listening to this podcast. What is the point? But a year down the road, you are going to be so glad you created that content, because now you can go back to it and use it again without having to create new things.
Yes, absolutely. I always have great resistance come up whenever it's time to write a nurture sequence, but they always serve me really well. And I'm also lucky that I have a team that knows how to put them in place and do all the tech stuff. So literally all I have to do is write them and then, look at them and make sure they are visually appealing when they get finished up. But I always have so much resistance come up around that. So
Well,
that's
it's
something I always
also
work on.
about knowing your strengths and what, like, you're good at, but also, even if there's like I can do it, but it drains me, where do we outsource? And I work with business owners sometimes who, like, they're really great at speaking, but they don't have time to sit down and write emails. And so I'll be like, okay, let's just talk for 20 minutes. Tell me some stuff. I'm going to write down your words. Or, like, I have one client that I work with that he did a podcast interview. I took that podcast interview and we turned it into 15 social media posts. So
Yes.
working with a team member who can help you repurpose your messaging, but knowing whatever the the platform or the container is, whether it's talking on a podcast, writing a blog, writing an email, the more you create, the clearer you get with your own messaging.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
when you go to outsource and you're able to add on an, agency support or a freelancer or a team member, you've already gotten that stuff out of your head and on
Mhm.
paper or digitally on a screen so that they can take it and optimize it
Right.
versus like starting from scratch and they're just trying to read your mind. So it's like, just start. And
Yeah,
I encourage new business owners this all the time, or business owners who haven't been creating content. Bad content is better than no content because you're
absolutely.
going to learn from the content.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen, different people do, I think it's Grace, I can't think of her last name, content creator who does like the garbage post challenge with, I don't know if you've seen that before, but like one of the things that she challenges people to do is just basically put up whatever. Just get
Mhm.
something up and just start from that like that place of just knowing that like it's okay. And kind of yeah, it's so funny the way we mess with ourselves and get in our heads about all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, the more content we create, the more we can, leverage it. And especially with like AI and things these days, I can't tell you how amazing it was to be able to have a book to put into ChatGPT and like it knows my voice so much better than it ever has before. But, other than that, like before 2021, I didn't have stuff. So like everything I've done since then, like AI is like really good at leveraging that kind of stuff. And that also helps my team to be able to write more for me. And then I always review things like, because, AI is not me. So it,
Right.
it gets it
Right.
wrong sometimes.
Yeah, and that's the thing about AI, because I use ChatGPT to write captions for 9grids, but to your point, I put in all of this input about who's the ideal client, what's the mission, what's the vision, what are the brand values, what are the offers, what's the transformation that we support people with, all of this
Mhm.
stuff. And oftentimes you have to tell ChatGPT, okay, that was a little wordy. Like, let's break it down a little bit. Or like ChatGPT loves to use the rocket emoji. Like, stop with the rocket emoji. Ever see a
Well,
caption
luckily
with
we can tell it that and then it stops with it. So, I mean, it is so very handy and I'm not really sure what we did before it. But that's where I get frustrated is that I mean, having done podcasts for years, my own, and been a guest, written a book, posting on social media for well over a decade. There's so much content that I have created, like it's endless practically. And I get frustrated when I have to like recreate things from scratch.
Yeah,
Like, I've
so
already done it. I've already said it. It's out there somewhere. Like, just make it go
no.
into these emails or into another post or say it in another way.
I was reading a sales page. I was reviewing a sales page for my agency last night, and I hadn't worked on this sales page or looked at it in a long time. And I was reading it, and I was like, I wrote this before ChatGPT, and it's really good. Like, go because we if when we start from a place of authenticity and knowing ourselves and knowing the language to use, then we can actually have AI support us. But we
Right.
do have to do that pre-work of figuring those things out and that messaging. And that takes time. And so creating content actually helps us work through that. And people will ask sometimes with the 9grid, okay, when I put up this 9grid, should I take down all my old content? No, I wouldn't. I would leave it. And what I actually tell people to do is like do like a 3grid or your first 3 posts before you put up the 9grid. I call them a separation post. And they're like literally telling people, hey, everything below this line is my content before I started the 9grid strategy. Take a look around, get to know me. Everything above is what's currently happening in my business. And then people know that those 9 posts, even if they've been there for 2 months, 3 months, whatever, that it's not like, oh, this business went out of business or they stopped being active or they're not, accepting new clients. They see and realize, oh, this is an intentional strategy.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. I love that. I'm going to have to poke around and see more about that. If people want to, create a 9 grid with you, what's the best way for them to get more information on that?
Yeah. So I have a decision-making tool that really walks you a little bit through the process and helps you decide if it's the right strategy for you, because it is not the right strategy for everybody. There are some times when I wouldn't recommend it. So you can get that on my website, theconsistencycorner.com/decide. And once you go through that decision matrix and see, is a 9grid right for me, you can see some different ways that we could work together to get some support either to do it yourself, to have me do it for you, or some other containers and ways that I could support business owners if the 9 grid is not quite right now.
Yeah, awesome. And are there other ways that you work with people outside of helping them create nine grids?
Yeah. So my goal is really to help you create sustainable content strategies. And so we have a content planning session or content planning package that if you're wanting to create your own content, or you have somebody on your team that can create content and you just need a roadmap, like a strategic, what do I talk about when and where and how do I repurpose it? We can do that with our brand content planning sessions. And then our agency actually does have a content management container where I serve as your director of marketing. We figure out all this funnel stuff for you, and then we will create the content for you from long form content, social, and email marketing.
That's amazing. Where can people find that information if they want to
Yeah,
find you?
head on over to theconsistencycorner.com. You can find all the ways to work together there. And then I host the Consistency Corner podcast. So if you're looking for more ways to find sustainable marketing strategy, occasional mindset tips. I love to bring mindset coaches and practitioners onto the show, like Teresa's been on the show. Listen to the Consistency Corner podcast.
Yes, it's a great show. And let's see, how has this whole running the consistency corner and making this shift out of being in like corporate marketing and things, how has that helped you become more of who you feel called to be in this world? It's always a question I like to ask people since we are on becoming more me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have a friend who says, she's like, entrepreneurship is the ultimate personal development journey. And that is 100% the truth. I
Truth.
mean, before you and I started working together, and I was working in a corporate role and I was doing network marketing and really diving into personal development, I was like, okay, like I'm doing the things, I'm reading the books, and I'm like, growth mindset, I'm all about it. And I remember you and I had this conversation when we worked together that like people keep saying to me, and I keep reading, like, you have to do the work. And I'm like, but I don't really know what that is.
What
Like,
work? Huh?
what's the work? Like, what are the steps? How do I cross it off? And being an entrepreneur has allowed me the space to do the work. It has allowed me the prompts to do the work, the new things and challenges to reflect upon, to be able to do that work. And you and I working together and doing EFT and working through limiting beliefs and stories from my past and things that I was telling myself, it's just opened up such a new self-awareness. And then surrounding myself with support partners, because the awareness is the first step, but then there's more steps to it. And
Sure.
surrounding myself with support partners who I can go to and say, okay, this is what I'm feeling, or this is what's coming up for me. Can you help me talk through this? And, I think before I was an entrepreneur and surrounding myself in communities like that and with other people with a growth mindset, like I didn't even think about the fact that you can get help with that stuff. Like you just think you're supposed to figure it out and everybody's figuring it on their own. And like, I'm the only one who doesn't know this stuff. But I'm so grateful for the community of entrepreneurs and women, particularly entrepreneurs, who are very open about, this is who I see for therapy. This is my mindset coach. This is who I have worked with on this problem or this issue. And it's like, oh, okay. It's okay to ask for help, and
Yes.
we're not meant to do it alone. And that connection in and of itself, has been a beautiful piece of becoming an entrepreneur and learning to become even more of myself by doing that work.
Awesome. I love that. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave listeners with before we wrap things up?
Yeah. When it comes to social media, the biggest thing that I want to like impart for you today is, yes, you do have to be on social media. You have to, because that's the expectation of a business in this day and age, because people are on social media, but you don't have to be on social media constantly. And you can find sustainable strategies to leverage social media differently than what all the experts are telling you. And if you find yourself scrolling, and this was like a light bulb moment for me back when I worked in corporate and I was managing 16 different social media profiles for my company, plus 27,000 other hats that I wore as a marketing director. I spent some time scrolling one day and I put my phone down after like a 45-minute scroll session that like was supposed to be fun, supposed to be connecting me to my community. And I was like, that added nothing to my life. Like I literally feel empty, and it drained me. And it was like, what am I doing? So just to have that awareness when you pick up your phone, when you open the app, when you find yourself scrolling, Is this adding value to my already limited time? Is this filling my cup? And once you have a content strategy in place that you can actually be excited about and proud of, it can improve your relationship with social media, because now when I use social media, I can connect with my friends and go check on the people I want to check on and see a few funny reels and then put my phone down
Which is the
because
point. It's social media, not
yes,
scroll media, like
yes. And as a content like strategist and content manager, I get stuck in the media part of it, that it's
right.
all about the content, but the word social comes first. So
Yes.
if we can improve our relationship with the content planning and the content creation, then we can be social and we can use it for connection.
I always have to bring myself back to that whenever I get stuck because
Mhm.
I'm like inconsistently consistent on social media. Like that's what it comes down to because I'm one of those people that like I have a ton of content. My team creates more content than I can even post and it just sits there like waiting for me to kind of go, okay, hey, today's the day. And I post at least once a week. Oftentimes I post once a day, but then I always have times when I'm just kind of like honoring the cycles of life and my own desire to go inward that like I don't even want to post something that's scheduled. I just want to not be expected to be there all the time. And then I'll find myself getting a little bit like, oh, it's been a little bit too long, Theresa, you should probably get back on there. And that's when I get into that kind of like nervous system freeze. And the way that I always find the easiest to break through that is just to pick up my phone, hop on stories, and just kind of like in some way, shape, or form pronounce that I'm back and I didn't really go anywhere and here's what's going on today. And that just always makes it so much easier for me to then start sharing things again. It's almost like there's part of me that thinks that if I don't have an explanation, then I'm not allowed to continue sharing 3 days later, a week later, whatever. And it's BS, but breaking the ice for me always involves a social aspect of kind of like showing up again.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite ways to leverage social is if I listen to a podcast and I hear somebody that like said something really insightful, send that person a message and say like, hey, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
As a podcast host, I'm sure you would agree, like those messages make your
Oh,
day.
heck yeah.
So just to connect with another
Absolutely.
human and say like, hey, I heard you say this thing. I really appreciated that. Thanks for sharing. That right there is going to fill your cup and fill that person's cup. And then now this is a tool that we're using for connection and for true social strategy versus media strategy.
Yeah, which is the goal of it. Because I mean, as business owners, like the best case scenario is that we are being social and talking in our DMs with the people who most need the things that we have to serve up to them.
Yeah.
And
And I have
that's
a friend,
social.
her name's Kelsey Curtis. She's a brand photographer and brand teacher. She teaches something called the connection method. And she has a book about her brand strategy and connection-based strategy. But one of the things she teaches is that you're not just trying to attract clients, but your community.
Yes.
And that shift in of itself can make it so different because it's like, okay, it doesn't matter if I talk to a client today.
Right.
I'm talking to my community. I'm talking to people that I want to be surrounded with. And some of those may become clients. Some of them may become referral partners. Some of them may be people that I end up hiring or working with.
Absolutely.
Some of them might just be friends that I chat with. I say all the time to my husband, oh, I was talking to my friend about blah, blah, blah. And he's like, your Instagram friend? And I'm like, yes, my friend on Instagram. Okay, they're my friend. It's fine.
Oh, some of my best friends are on Instagram.
Yes, and
How it
then
goes.
I do say that there's no substitute for in-person connection. And I love a retreat and a get together and being in the room with people. But as busy women who are running businesses or moms, like we don't
Mhm.
always have that luxury and that time. So let's use the tools that we do have to connect with amazing people.
Absolutely. Thank you for that reminder. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. I'm so glad we had this time together to catch up and for you to share everything about these awesome different strategies and ideas for marketing. And thank you for being here, Ruthie.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a fun conversation.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.